Hey, what up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you. I posted up my prediction video to the TNA Lockdown pay-per-view that's going to be happening on Sunday. And last night, and I was sort of thinking about TNA, going over some stuff in my head about this, that, and the other. I was sort of remembering how big last year's lockdown was. It was making me think how bad this year's lockdown is by comparison. I honestly think the last year's lockdown was one of the biggest pay-per-views that TNA has had since Kurt Angle came in, which I believe was like 2006. So, I mean, it's a pretty big deal that I think that this is like the biggest pay-per-view that they've had in 6 years. And Lockdown is always the one pay-per-view that always sort of rises above the best. I think a lot of people watching all of the steel cage matches, and it always seems to be either that or Bound for Glory, TNA's little WrestleMania deal. Always seems to be one of the most highest bought pay-per-views of the year for TNA. As you can see, TNA cut down to only a few pay-per-views a year. They were both the ones that made the cut that they're sticking with. But the one main deal that made Lockdown as big as it was is that you had the encounter. You were finally getting the explosion of beer money, much like the big WrestleMania 5 when the Mega Powers exploded. You had Hogan versus Macho Man, two of the biggest stars of the company, and beer money was one of the best tag teams I think that they've ever had in TNA. You can put them right there with America's Most Wanted, and it's a little bit hard to try to compare them because James Storm was a member of both tag teams. And I think that if you were a fan of TNA and you were watching, the tag team division was one of the things that was really, really carrying it for a long time. That was one of the main reasons why I stayed with TNA, because I've always been a big fan of tag team wrestling, and it's just WWE just doesn't seem to care about it. They've always kept the tag belts around, but they've never really made tag team wrestling something that you really, really cared about. It's been a long time since probably like 2006 on SmackDown, when the SmackDown belts really, really meant a whole lot, when you had the world's greatest tag team. You had, who else was there? You had the Guerreros, you had the tag team with Benoit, and Angle, and that was honestly awesome, real good stuff. Everybody likes to make the jokes about SmackDown always having, the tag team matches with Teddy Long, but this is when, tag team matches really were the shit, and they would main event week in, week out, and they were always something that were worth checking it out. Now, in the last year, the one guy that rises above the top that is one of my favorite guys is James Storm, and building up to Lockdown last year, it was James Storm finally taking that step up on that pedestal and becoming one of the big stars of TNA. It was sort of a surprise. When they were doing the Bound for Glory series the year before, a lot of people thought that it was going to come down to Robert Roode winning the Bound for Glory series, which he did, and then he went to the pay-per-view, and it was him against Kurt Angle, who was hurt at the time, but Hulk Hogan used his creative control card, and he basically said, I don't want Robert Roode to be my champion. He told him the day before the pay-per-view at the whatever they call Access for TNA. I mean, you couldn't have seen a more sadder guy if you've seen any of the videos of the events. He just didn't want to be there. A lot of people would give Robert Roode, that sort of character that he doesn't like fans and he doesn't like meeting people, this, that, and the other. But he honestly just didn't want to be there that day. And as a face, going into one of the main events of that show, he should have been smiling and, kissing babies and taking pictures with everybody, but he didn't. You go to the Impact after Bound for Glory, and as a big surprise, James Storm steps up. He's the guy that beats Kurt Angle. He becomes the TNA champion. That didn't last but for a week when James Storm, challenged his partner to step up to see who was the better guy, and Robert Roode took that full advantage to turn heel and take that title away from James Storm, and that is what pushed you all the way to Lockdown, where basically James Storm and Robert Roode had one of the best matches TNA's ever had, in my opinion. In a steel cage match, they beat the holy hell out of each other. It came down to it when James Storm super kicked Robert Roode, and when he did, you would think that he would fall down on the mat for the 1-2-3 and we'd have a new champion. But Roode fell out of the ring through the cage, George, which is a spot we've seen in a lot of matches throughout the years, a lot of classic tag matches, and it cost him his chance. After that, he sort of, went on this thing where, he told his family that he was going to win the title, he was going to come home with it that Sunday, and he really felt like he let down his daughter, and he let down his family and his fans, so he sort of walked away from TNA. He took 2 months off to sort of settle and to make you want to care about him when he came back. Honestly, in my opinion, I think that cooled him off way too much. He should have gone on the hunt. It should have started some sort of long series of matches between him and Roode, but they felt like that Roode and Storm was one of the biggest driving points of TNA pay-per-view at the time, so they just sort of let him sit off at the sidelines. He made his big return at the Slammiversary pay-per-view where he came back. He beat Crimson. Crimson had the long undefeated streak, much like Goldberg, and it was a big mystery on who was going to come back. I swing and a missed on this one. There was rumors even that Christian Cage from WWE, the Intercontinental Champion at the time, would be making an appearance at the pay-per-view, and he might even be the guy to fight Crimson. It is what it is. He walked in, he beat the guy, he took the streak away, and Crimson, much like James Storm, is a guy that in the last year has sort of fallen off the face of the earth, and the guy was supposed to be a star. Everybody said he was, and it's just not working out for him. Right after that, James Storm's entered the Bound for Glory series. He's the high favorite to win it. He's got the quest, to take down Robert Roode. This is his one chance to get the rematch. He has to win the Bound for Glory series. It's pretty obvious that he's the favorite because the first night on Impact, they have the, not a scramble match. It wasn't a battle royal. It was a gauntlet match, and he wins the gauntlet match, which most wins in there are good for 5 points, but since this is a special match, it was good for 20 points, and he started out with a long advantage of 20 points to 0 for everybody else. He comes all the way down to the No Surrender pay-per-view, which is the final four of the guys in the tournament, and he loses the Bully Ray due to Robert Roode. Robert Roode was jealous that basically he had a shot at going up for the title after Roode had lost the title to Austin Aries the pay-per-view before at Destination X. And so once again, James Storm was taken off the tracks as the guy that was supposed to be winning the championship. You go down to after that, Bound for Glory was the next match for him. Bound for Glory, you finally got to see the beatdown of these guys. It wasn't for the title. It wasn't the main event. It was just a basic grudge match where these guys beat the holy hell out of each other. And TNA tried to make you care a little bit more by having the King Mo from Bellator be the special guest referee. And he won. Basically, Storm beat Roode. He was like a man landing on the moon. He was able to plant his flag inside of the ring and say, I beat this guy. I finally able to get to the top of the mountain. You would think after doing all that and beating the former champion, he'd become the #1 contender. But they don't just give it to him. He has to go to the next pay-per-view. He has to win at Turning Point, a #1 contenders match between Roode and AJ. In a 3-way, this also has the one thing that if you lose, you don't get a shot for 1 year at the title. AJ lost. As you can see the storyline they're doing with him, it sort of seems like they're trying to push him back, but try to keep him in the limelight at the same time. So honestly, for me, a guy that's a fan of James Storm, I'm glad as hell that he didn't win, but I think they really do have a plan for what they're doing with AJ. They're trying to sort of tease him, like riding the motorcycle around and dressing all dark, that he's going to join Aces and Eights. Sort of reminds me of what they're doing, what they did with Sting when he was, the NWO kept on saying he was on their side. He started wearing the Crow gimmick, which was, the same colors as the NWO, so you thought that he was on that team. And then in the end, he was WCW the whole time, and he's kicking everybody's ass. From there, he wins the #1 contendership, and much like when he won the title on Impact, months beforehand, he just straight up loses it in a 1-on-1 match to none other than Robert Roode. He just beat this guy a month ago, and now he lost to him. And this is when, he was already starting to slide. You can say that he took a big jump when he took that 2 months off after lockdown to come back and beat Crimson. Some people sort of forgot about him, and now he's sort of, slipping down the ranks again. That one match with him and Rude not being for the championship, but Bound for Glory, and just being some sort of a grudge match, I think really hurt him in the long run. After that, he lost to Rude on Impact, and then the next 2 pay-per-views, he's not even really booked for him in any sort of matches at all. He goes into Final Resolution. He has a match against Kaz, which is unadvertised, which nobody knew about, so that means nobody cared about. They're fighting about something about, screwing goats or something like that inside the ring. And then he goes to Genesis, and he loses the number 1 contenders match to Daniels. Daniels gets to step up and get the title shot at Impact. Daniels is a tag team wrestler. He's been in a tag team feud for over a year with him and Kaz going over the tag team championships. And all of a sudden, out of the middle of nowhere, they step over James Storm and they give the shot to Daniels. They are dropping the ball on James Storm so much. I'm not going to say this guy could be Stone Cold Steve Austin, but his gimmick is basically the same thing. Goes out and just brawls with people, drinks beer. People love him. If you've been to Teenage House shows, people buy up his merch like crazy. He's one of the guys that always has new shirts out because people always buy them, and seems like they don't give a damn about this guy. It's like they wanted to create a star so bad, and now this guy is just slipping and slipping away. It makes no sense to me, how a pay-per-view like Lockdown could fall so far, and then another guy like James Storm is a guy that was supposed to be, one of the biggest stars in the company, is nothing to them. So, basically that's my long rant about why Lockdown sucks, and why probably nobody's going to buy it a year after them, having one of the best pay-per-views they've had in a long damn time.